So for this video, we're going to do these two categories here, and I'm just going to do, let's say, 2 examples from each of these, okay? So not too many because they're pretty similar to these first two. So let's start with solve by trinomial factor a is equal to 1. Okay, so for this one, we're going to solve the quadratic by factoring. Let me annotate. Okay, so our first step is we want to make this equation equal to 0. So I'm going to do that by subtracting 10x. Subtracting 10x. So we get x squared, and then the 14x minus 10x, that gives us plus 4x. And then the minus 21 is still just a minus 21 equals 0. So now we have a quadratic equal to 0. So your first step is to set it equal to 0, okay? Now that we set it equal to 0, you do the x factor. So I can put the negative 21 up here, and I can put the 4 over here, and I think to myself, what numbers multiply? Let me write multiply. Multiply to 21 and add to 4. So I can think of 7 and negative 3. Let's double check. 7 times negative 3 equals negative 21. That works. 7 plus negative 3, that's the same thing as 7 minus 3. That gives us 4. That works as well. So we're good. So how do I use the 7 and the negative 3? Well, that means, here, let me rewrite this. X squared plus 4x minus 21 equals 0. That was like our original thing that we had over here. So I'm going to rewrite it now in its factored form as x plus 7, x minus 3. So this got replaced with that, and then that's equal to 0. So we have x plus 7, x minus 3 equals 0. So far, nothing much has changed from what we did in the last category. Here's where you do the solving. So if we have two factors and they're equal to 0, 2 factors means they're multiplied to each other. Remember that any number multiplied by 0 will give you 0. So if either of these factors was equal to 0, their product would equal 0. That's why all you have to do is say x plus 7 equals 0, or x minus 3 equals 0. So now we have 2 solutions that we will have to solve for. The first equation that we write is x plus 7 equals 0, and the other equation we write is x minus 3 equals 0. So to solve, minus 7, x, those cancel out, equals negative 7. Some of you might notice that this answer, negative 7, is literally just the opposite of that number. That's great. Plus 7, if it says x plus 7, then you know that your answer is negative 7. Let's take a look at the other one. If x minus 3 equals 0, you add 3, x equals 3. And once again, you might notice this 3 is just the opposite of what happened here. If it says x minus 3, then your answer is positive 3. So we have 2 answers. So in order to do 2 answers, I'm going to use this plus sign, this button right over here that my mouse is flailing around. This will give us 2 answer boxes, and I will type negative 7, and I will type 3. Remember that it doesn't matter which one you put first. I could have put 3 and then negative 7. Either way, it works. So before I submit this, are there any questions? And submit. And let me get rid of all those annotations. Okay, and let's go to the next problem. Solve the quadratic by factoring. So same idea. Remember, your first step is to set it equal to 0. So I'm going to go minus 9x, x squared, those cancel out. So I'm just going to write plus 0x, and then it's minus 16 equals 0. So there's a few ways you could have solved this one. X squared plus 0x minus 16, that's the same thing as x squared minus 16. Some of you might notice it is a difference of perfect squares. So you might already know that this is x plus 4, x minus 4. If you do, great, you've already skipped some steps. If you forgot how to do the difference of perfect squares, that's okay. Let me show you how to do it x factoring, because I know everybody here is decently comfortable with x factoring. So I'm going to put negative 16 on the top. You want it to multiply to negative 16, and then you want it to add to the number here, a 0. Because even if you wrote it like this, there's no x term, so it's x squared plus 0x minus 16. So then therefore, this is the number you want it to add to. So then you think to yourself, what two numbers multiply to negative 16 and add to 0? 4 and negative 4. Because 4 times negative 4 equals negative 16. That works. And then 4 plus negative 4 will give you 0. So that works as well. So then our numbers are 4 and negative 4. Let me rewrite this. We have x squared plus 0x minus 16 equals 0. We're going to rewrite this in factored form. X plus 4, x minus 4 equals 0. So when two factors are multiplied together and they equal 0, that means either x plus 4 equals 0 or x minus 4 equals 0. Either way will work. So let's solve the one on the left first. We're going to go minus 4 on both sides. X equals negative 4. You might notice this negative 4 is the opposite of where it came from. So if it said x plus 4, then your answer will have been x equals negative 4. Let's solve the one on the right. You add 4, x cancel out equals positive 4. And once again, you might notice that this answer is literally the opposite of what happened there. So if it says x minus 4 is your factor, then your answer will be positive 4. Any questions on this one? All right, so I typed it in. I'm going to submit it. And let's clear our annotations because they are so in the way. Cool. Okay, so that was 2 examples from solving by trinomial factor when a is equal to 1. Let's do 2 examples for solving by trinomial factor when a is greater than 1, so our last category. Okay, so the process is still the same. You want to make it equal to 0. Let's set it equal to 0 by adding x. Sorry, that was a really squiggly line, but here is 5x squared minus 13x plus 6 equals 0. So the minus 14x plus x became negative 13x. Okay, so now we're going to do our x factor. So what goes on top? We're going to take the 5 and the 6, multiply it together. The 5 from the 5x squared and the 6 at the very end. So 5 times 6 gives us 30. We're going to think of two numbers that multiply to 30. What goes on the bottom? The negative 13x, so you're going to say minus 13. That's the number that you want our two things to add to. Remember that because we have an a value, because this is a number 5, we must put these as fractions. So I'm going to say over 5 and over 5. All right, so now we think about what two numbers will multiply to 30 and add to negative 15. Okay, wait. Or sorry, add to negative 13. Okay, so we have, what about negative 10 and negative 3? Two negative numbers, because negative times a negative equals a positive. Well, that does not look like a 30. Equals a positive, so that works. And then negative 3 plus negative 10 gives us negative 13. So that works as well. All right, so now that we have our fractions, let's simplify them. This one is as simplified as it gets, so I'm just going to leave it as is. But the negative 10 over 5, we can simplify that one into being negative 2. Okay, so let's rewrite this as the two factors. So we have originally a 5x squared, let me draw a line here, 5x squared minus 13x plus 6 equals 0. Then we're going to rewrite all of this into factored form. We have the negative 3/5. Remember the 5 on the bottom, it goes in front of the x. And then the minus 3 on the top is just the minus 3. And then the negative 2, x minus 2. You already knew how to do that one. So you set it equal to 0. And so just like in the last category, each of these factors set it equal to 0. So 5x minus 3 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0. Let's solve the one on the left side. So you can add 3, then that cancels out. You get 5x equals 3. Then you divide by 5, x equals 3 over 5. So you might notice that this number is the opposite of the one that we set over here. So our x value, the 3/5, is the positive 3/5, whereas when we did our x factoring, you said it was negative 3/5. So it's just the opposite. So if you know that trick, you can skip some of these steps, okay? So the x value in our answer is the opposite of what we did in our x factor. Let's take a look at what happens on the other side as well. So x minus 2 equals 0, you're going to add 2, x equals 2. And you might notice that, yes, this is the same thing as the other category. So it's the opposite of what happened here. It says x minus 2. So then we have a positive 2 as our answer. Also, take a look, same thing as in our x factor. If you have a negative 2 in your x factor, then your answer will be positive 2, okay? So these two numbers that you put in your x factor, you just do the opposite of it. So if it's negative 3/5, we have positive 3/5 is one of our answer. We had a negative 2 in our x factor, positive 2 is one of our answers. Okay, so there's a little bit of shortcuts here if that makes you happier, because don't we all like shortcuts once you understand the way it works? Okay, so I'm gonna pause here and see if you have any questions. Okay, seems like we had no questions, so I'm gonna submit this with all that messy stuff. Okay, let's clear that messy stuff, and then we'll do one more example. Okay, so let me annotate again. Change color to black. Okay, we're going to solve this last quadratic by factoring. Remember, you want it to be equal to 0. So I'm going to move everything to the side with the 2x squared in it, because I want this one to be a positive number. I don't want to bring it over here and then have it be negative 2x squared. So I'm going to bring everything to that way. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to do plus 5x and plus 10. So we get our 2x squared plus 5x, and then the negative 13 and the plus 10, that becomes a minus 3, equals, those cancel, we get 0. So remember, your first step in all of these is to set it equal to 0, and now we have done that. Once you have it equal to 0, you can do your x factor. So what goes on the top? You're going to take the 2 in the front and the negative 3 in the back, multiply, becomes negative 6. You're going to think of two numbers that multiply to negative 6. What goes on the bottom? The middle number, the plus 5x, so that means positive 5 here. You want to think of two numbers that add to 5. Remember that these are going to be fractions and they're both over 2. Where did that 2 come from? Right there. So now that we have it set up, we must think of two numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add to positive 5. So I can think of 6 and negative 1. Let's try it out. 6 times negative 1 multiply to negative 6. That works. And then 6 plus negative 1, which is really just 6 minus 1. That's going to give us 5. So that works out as well. So let's simplify. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Negative 1/2 is just negative 1/2. Okay, so I know you have the shortcut, which is just the opposite of these numbers, but I also just want to show you the reason why that is. So I'm going to go ahead and do the entire problem the longer way. 2x squared plus 5x minus 3 equals 0. Remember, we replaced this with the factored form. So it's x plus 3 to go with this one, and then 2x minus 1 to go with the negative 1/2. And then we're going to set each of these factors equal to 0. So x plus 3 equals 0. And also 2x minus 1 equals 0. On the left side, we can subtract 3. Subtract 3, we get x equals negative 3 because those cancel out. And like I said, the shortcut is that the answer you get here is opposite of what you had in your x factor. So neat little shortcut for us. Take a look at the other side. We're going to add 1. Those cancel out. The 2x becomes 1. We divide by 2, divide by 2. Those cancel out. We get x equals positive 1/2. Once again, notice that the answer, the positive 1/2, is the opposite of what we got in our x factor. So if you like just using the shortcut, go ahead. Save some time on your scratch paper. But I just want to show you as your teacher all of this work on the side because that's the reason why the shortcut works. Okay? Okay, so let me go ahead and type in these answers. You can type them in any order you want. You can put the negative 3 first, or you can put the 1/2 first. I'm gonna put the 1/2 first just because. And are there any questions? And I'm gonna submit answer. Oh, what did we do? Oh, I didn't put a negative, my bad. Yeah, see the answer is negative 3 and I typed a positive 3. There we go. Be careful what you type because sometimes you will type the wrong thing even though you did your math correctly. And that has happened to me twice already today, so be careful. All right, so I think that is it for this video. If you do have more questions, just let me know by calling me to your breakout room.